All right, so how many independent variables can we have? Well, can we have? We can have as many as we want. There's no limit to how many independent variables you can have in a study. But generally, 2 or 3 independent variables is what most people will include in their study. Part of the reason why you limit yourself is because it becomes really complex really fast to add more than 1 or 2 or 3 additional independent variables. Also, we limit ourselves because the more independent variables you have, this is a pretty complex term I'm going to introduce here. It's called power. The more power you have. Power refers to our ability to reject the null hypothesis. We want to be able to reject the null hypothesis. We're going to talk about this in another chapter. But the more independent variables you include, the more likely you are to do that in error. We don't want to lead ourselves to believe that certain variables are important when in fact they really aren't. So we have to be really careful in designing our studies. Usually we limit ourselves to 2 or 3 independent variables. The simplest design is a 2 by 2. That would be a direct doubling of the simplest design. So you have 1 independent variable with 2 levels, another independent variable with 2 levels. It's what we call a 2 by 2. So 2 by 2. The value of each of those numbers refers to how many levels each of the independent variables has. So we have 2 independent variables, each with 2 levels. The number of numbers tells us how many independent variables there are. So the fact that there are 2 2's lets us know that there are 2 independent variables. The fact that each of those numbers is a 2 lets us know that each of those independent variables has 2 levels. Let me show you what I mean. Here's a 2 by 2 design. So we have Gore and Bush. We could call this the independent variable, who did you vote for? And then we have this independent variable, which I guess we could call it, voter registration, Democrat or Republican, right? So we've got voter registration by who did you vote for? And then we have our 2 levels of each on each variable. So this is a classic 2 by 2 design. Okay. Just to sort of break away from these 2's to help underscore what I mean by the value of each number indicates how many levels, and the number of numbers indicates how many. Here we have a 6 by 7 design. So how many independent variables are there? Well, there's a 6 and there's a 7. So that's 1, 2 numbers, right? So that means we've got 2 independent variables. 2 independent variables. One of them has 6 levels, the other one has 7 levels. Now I always like to get really concrete because it seems like it makes it make more sense. So with this graph, what we're seeing is we've got 2 independent variables. One of the variables is age group, and you see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels on age group. Now on any graph, the y-axis is always going to be the dependent variable. So we don't look over here to figure out the other independent variable. We instead look over here on the legend to figure out the other independent variable. Or we could just count up the number of bars. But here's the legend. So our other independent variable has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 levels. So we have 1, 2 independent variables, one with 6 levels and one with 7 levels. Oh, my animation messed up. Perfect. All right.